Good evening, welcome to the Winthrop Town Council meeting. It's Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. We are in the Harvey Hearing Room. It is 6:30. I would ask call to order and a roll call, please.
Counsel Tassinari.
Here.
Counsel Costigan.
Here.
Counsel Munson. Counsel DeMarco.
Here.
Counsel Aiello.
Here.
Counsel Swope.
Here.
Counsel DeRoss.
Here.
Vice President Belcher.
Here.
President Lettieri.
Here.
Thank you.
There's a quorum. All rise for the pledge, led by Councilor DeMarco.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes were circulated. I don't know if everybody had a chance to read them or not, but if they did, I'm looking for a motion. This is from the August 6th meeting. Motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Councilor Swope, second by Vice President Belcher. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have
Abstain.
it. One abstention. We have no general information recommendation, public hearing, public comment. We'll have the first public comment period. Who would like to start us off? Karen.
Karen Chavez, precinct 2. I know the town clerk is aware of this, but I just want to make a point. I see that Superintendent Gallo is here. September 3rd is Primary Day, and one of our voting places is the O'Connell Hall down at Golden Drive. And when I was leaving Winthrop the last couple of days, there's been a lot of construction going on Revere Street with, one-way traffic. And I was just hoping that maybe on that particular day, September 3rd, the construction could be avoided, maybe down, I haven't seen a new schedule, so I don't know where they're gonna be. But just if they could just avoid that to make it easier. I think it's hard enough for people that live in precinct 4 to go in there to vote now, and now to make it even more difficult to get in actually to Golden Drive. Just a suggestion, that's all.
Yep, no, point well taken. Thank you. You have that written there. You can take a look at it. Show. Yes.
Hi, Cheryl Howard, precinct 2. I just wanted to thank everybody that signed the latest petition to put the 3A mandate to a people's vote. We had 771 people sign the petition, with lots of people that didn't get to sign it, that wanted to sign it. So I want to say thank you. And I also want to recognize that the 3A mandate is manipulative from the state. It's just a terrible bullying approach from our government. So the people want to have their say, they want to let the state know how they feel, and we want that opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you. Kathleen.
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio, 49 Waldemar Ave. If I may, prior to my
Sure.
public comment, just
Yes.
I'm going to reference an email, so I'd like to may I give that to you, Council
Yes,
President?
fine.
I have copies for everyone at the table.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Again, Kathleen Capuccio, 49 Waldemar Ave. I was actually going to try to actually write down what I wanted to say, and then I kind of thought, that's actually not me, so I'm not going to do that. So pursuant to Freedom of Information requests that I did, I received about 1,600 documents from the town of Winthrop with regard to 3A matters. One of the emails I received was quite shocking, to say the least. This email I have provided to the town councilors. I think pretty much everyone's aware of it. Throughout town right now, it's being known as the hijack email. It has been posted a bunch of places. So I gotta put my readers on. On Monday, April 8th, 2024, Councilor Aiello, from his personal email, sent an email to Senator Lydia Edwards to her personal email copied Counselor DeRoss on his personal email, I think by mistake, copied Counselor Belcher on her town email. That's why I got this email. I'm not gonna read the whole email. What this email was about was draft, pursuant to this email, draft next steps response from Augustus to Winthrop TC and TM. So this was prior to the meeting that the town of Winthrop officials and town manager Marino were having with Secretary Augustus. The really germane points of this email is, and I will state directly from the email, again, it says Lydia, which means Senator Edwards, Lydia, and again, this is from Counselor Aiello, personal email. Lydia, we are working at a disadvantage of not seeing what Tony and Jim are preparing. However, we agree to hijack, and again, I repeat, hijack the meeting. He goes on to state some other things. At the end of the email, he states, again to Senator Edwards on her personal email, let us know via text. So not even on her personal email, let us know via text her response to this. This is concerning for numerous reasons. For one, I would like to know, and I probably won't hear tonight, I'd like to know the intent of hijacking a meeting with Secretary Augustus. I would like to know why certain counselors were on this hijack email. I would like to know why clearly personal emails, aside from Counselor Belcher's, were used. There is an absolute 100% intent that is crystal clear, not debatable, to potentially subvert freedom of information. Because when most people do a freedom of information request, you usually ask for your government emails. So I would like to know what is happening here. I have sent a follow-up FOIA request for all of Counselor Aiello's personal emails and text messages, because once Counselor Aiello did this, pursuant to law, not debatable, he opened himself up because he was conducting official town of Winthrop business on a personal email. So we deserve a response to this. Also, I think people should look at section 1.7, ethical standards of our charter. And also, I'd like to know the status of recall language, because if this isn't recall, this is why we have a recall, this is.
All right,
So
thank you.
we demand transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, you mentioned that you're FOIAing again, so I don't want to comment until I hear get more information from this. Yes.
Diane Sands, precinct 2. One other thing, to go along with that, there's the fourth counselor mentioned in that. It's not on the email, but Counselor Munson is mentioned as part of the team in their steps of one will do something, a second will then do something else, a third will do something else, and then a fourth, Mr. Munson, will do something else. So there are 4 counselors in the plot. That's all. He is not on the email, but he's in the plot.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
And I'd also like to know why,
Just name and precinct, please.
Charter 54,
Thank you.
I'd like to know why the council management hasn't looked into this email and decided what the course should be from the town standpoint, if in fact what it's saying is true in this email, deserves a response. But you as the head of the town, I believe, should be investigating this and its ramifications to the town, and not because some individual happened to find this and take it to everybody's attention. I think it's a gross responsibility of town management to look into these things. It's what's happening across the country when it comes to, I'm trying to undermine what's going on in government. Thank you.
Obviously, I was not aware of the email.
Well, it was in, everybody else was aware of it.
No, I'm not saying before this came out. Yes,
Thank you,
Mr. Dow.
President. As far as Mr. Aiello is concerned, there's been 3 people that have asked for Mr. Aiello's resignation. I'm not gonna say the names, but, so it's an ongoing issue here, and this just furthers that issue. The other thing, the other thing I want to talk about is Hannah Belcher's input into this 3A matter. And you're watching politics on TV, the Republicans and the Democrats, and they always, the president always asks for the vice president to always go along with what they're standing for. And I looked up a few, maybe someone does, the vice president doesn't, don't. But I think, Hannah, that you're supposed to be supporting your president in this matter of 3A. Not only that, I believe it's gonna come down to a 90% vote no. And I've done very well predicting stuff in this town, as you know, Ms. Lettieri. I predicted your campaign at 700 and it was 699. So why don't you get on board with what the president wants? Why don't you get on board with what your constituents want? And all constituents in this town, get on board. I believe it's gonna be 90%. That's not gonna look very good on either side. The other matter is the flooding issues all around town, and you're being made well aware of all the flooding issues. You're gonna hear a lot of it. But on Morton Street, I went down there and I measured curb to curb. It's 36 feet in most places. It's a very wide street. A few years ago, the town put the wood fences up. Good looking fence. But they took the berm down in order to install the wood fence. Unfortunately, the wood fence doesn't help with the water going underneath it, so there's a big flooding issue down there. It's a wide street. You won't be interrupting any type of traffic to do an in-house installation of berms. I measured 1,300 feet from the boatyard to the first house on the water side. So 1,300 feet is a good way to start this project down there. It would be very inexpensive. It can be an in-house job to do. And I think we owe the people on Morton Street and Banks, we owe them to restore the berm that used to be there so the water doesn't come flooding into their house. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duff. Yes, Karen?
Carol, excuse me, Carol Pachola, Precinct 4. I just wanted to mention, I know that the council has received all of our letters and all of our notes regarding opposition to 3A. So I just want to focus on a couple of brief points. One is that I urge the council to delay any vote on 3A until the citizens have a right to vote and decide their fate in this town. Secondly, I urge the council to wait on any vote until the Milton case is decided by the Supreme Judicial Court. Milton right now has filed a legal brief that states that the state itself cannot compel compliance. It can only withhold grant funds. Milton argues that the legislature set out financial penalties for non-compliance, but it did not give the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, the power to compel compliance through the courts. This is an issue the court will decide as to whether or not we have been mandated to comply. It seems by all appearances that that is not a legal mandate and it's being challenged. We should wait until we know what the court says before we stick our necks out and make a decision. We can choose not to adopt 3A. We understand the consequences. We will forego eligibility of 4 state grants. But that may be a small price to pay because the expenses involved with increased occupancy can be far greater than the infrastructure and other related expenses. These grants are not guaranteed. We don't know if they'll even be approved, and we don't know the amount of funding. We're competing with 350 communities across the state for the same money, and we don't know if we're going to get a dime of it. The odds don't look so good, and nothing is guaranteed. Also, the grants may not offset the expenses for occupancy. I want to stress that the occupancy is not about just new development, it's also about reconfiguration of existing housing. That can increase occupancy without ever even building another unit. So I urge you to wait to vote. Lastly, I just ask you to not proceed with identifying designated zones. These targeted zones will place those people under state control, and we will be deprived of our local protections and rights. We are paying local taxes, we deserve local protections. We will be deprived of those rights, which is considered unequal protection under the law, It is a constitutional violation and it's considered discrimination. And when the courts get a hold of this law, it's going to be flagrantly discriminatory and they will stop it. Please protect our rights of property, our property values, and our personal rights to be treated like everyone else in this town and not be targeted and losing local control. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Steve Belmonte, Precinct 1, Republican Town Committee. Is 3A not a government overreach of our local constitutional rights? That's the question that I have. Seems to me that it is. Anyone have an answer?
It's not a question and answer period.
Right, but food for thought.
100%. Any other public comments? Yes. Diana.
Coming in on the run.
Okay. We recognize that you are an elected body.
Again, I'm sorry, Diana.
Diana Vian's Precinct 2. We recognize that you are an elected body. We also recognize 3A is not going well at all. Massachusetts is one of 26 initiative petition states, which means that we have the right to make this decision directly as citizens. Our Citizens Initiative petition follows our state and local laws to do just that.
A little louder, Diane.
Our state and local laws allow us to vote directly by Citizens Initiative petition. In Massachusetts, we're one of the 26 states in the country that allows for just that. In less than 1 week, we collected 771 signatures. That's here. We only needed 195. 771 people came out. People who overwhelmingly chose to vote directly on 3A. We don't want you guys to vote at all, okay? That's the situation. We want this to be handled by the people. This petition is going before you for a vote to be adopted. Sorry, for dramatic effect. This is insane. This is people coming out of the woodwork. It's crazy. They were reaching out to us like, please let us sign. 771 people in record time. And again, this is 4 times the number of signatures that we needed, okay? To make that abundantly clear, this is the will of the people. This petition is going before you for a vote to either adopt or reject. Doing nothing also counts as a rejection in about 1 to 2 weeks' time. If you adopt it, we're done. Any question we have on 3A will go to the people to vote on directly via local ballot in November. If you reject it or do nothing, we just get 195 signatures, which will be very easy, which allows the people to decide the question which was before you at that point in a special election. The question will be, do the people get to vote on 3A issues, or does this town council get to decide? The people will have that in front of them. If you do nothing or if you reject our language. I have to tell you that people were reaching out to us to find out where we were going to be so that they could come and sign this petition because they want the right to vote. The people reserve the right to vote on 3A directly because it impacts their homes, their families, their quality of life, and their rights.
Thank you, Diana. Any other questions? All right.
President, just one quickie.
Yes.
I would have signed that, but I was away on vacation.
So we'll consider it 772.
My name is Pete Gill, I'm in Precinct 2.
Doesn't count.
Bye.
Correspondence, Denise?
Yes, we have one from Julia Howington, who actually is for 3A, would like the town council to consider voting for it. Anthony DeGregorio and Judith DeGregorio from Sail Harbor are against 3A. And we have from Cheryl Howard, who would like you to, she is against the air rights for what is coming up on the agenda tonight for 50 Somerset. That's it.
And I did receive one from former President Peter Gill, which I would just read in as, to the members of the town council, as you may know, I am vehemently opposed to the council accepting 3A or any other form of 3A, given the multiple concerns expressed by many of our fellow Winthrop residents. Given the many negative impacts of this law would have on our town and on our fellow Winthrop residents, I strongly urge our town council to vote no on 3A as soon as possible. Thank you for your consideration. Peter Gill. Thank you, former president. And committee reports, rules and ordinance update on short-term rental.
A final draft of the short-term rental has been circulated to the council and will be sent to the planning board shortly. Because this is in the zoning portion of the town ordinances, it has to go to a public hearing, so there'll be a 14-day notice. The planning board will take it up, and then it will come back to the council.
All right, and consider that sent to the planning board, please. Thank you. School department report. School department met last evening. School begins next week. I believe the teachers go back Monday, Tuesday. Children go back Wednesday, Thursday, and then I think they have the Labor Day weekend off and start in earnest on the following Tuesday. So for traffic, for residences, please be aware. Kids will be out and about. Keep an eye out, and safety first. Thank you for that. Town manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I did briefly bring up the Euro Beach last meeting. We still don't have the draft plan yet. I did reach out to the consultant. He was away for a few days, so I was promised that by the end of the week. So once we get that, then we'll schedule the meeting with the residents down there. We don't have it yet, though, so we should shortly. We are finalizing some survey questions and picking the best option to put the survey out for looking at the two fire station sites we've been talking about, i.e. the old middle school site and Walden Street. So once we get a draft of that, we'll send it around to the council to, make sure everybody's okay with it. We have the hazardous waste day coming up. I mentioned that last time, but that also is August 24th at the 100 Kennedy Drive in the DPW parking lot from 9 to 12. Just want to remind everybody about that. And also with the passing of the Affordable Housing Act, Attorney Sepulveda has been analyzing that and how it could impact Winthrop. So he's got a draft memo that he's putting together that he'll send out to the council, just with impacts, not thoroughly in depth, but, the AHUs, all, accessible housing units, all those kind of things. I'll want to make sure that, Winthrop's there. There's a tiny home provision in there. There's a bunch of stuff that could impact us that we want to make sure we understand, how it could potentially impact us and any changes we may want to make or adopt. So he's taking a look at that, and he'll get the memo out by the end of the week. And brought up at the last meeting about the cameras at Hannaford Park. We are able to put them up, and they should be up within a couple of weeks.
Thank you.
And then they'll be right back to the police station to be able to monitor them down there.
Great.
So that is happening. And obviously, I'll be open to any questions that they may have. The council may have.
Mr. President. Councilor Tasneri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Manager, I just had a quick follow-up question on the change to the charter that we voted on last November. Have we
Yes.
heard back from the AG's office on that?
They've been in constant contact with the AG's office about that. There was a mix-up with a form that was submitted there, but they did promise us, I think by August 22nd, that they were gonna get back to us with an answer. So I believe by the end of the week, we should have that finalized, if all goes well.
And they'll tell us if it's gonna be retro back to January 1, or what's
Retro
the?
back from the day we submitted it, I believe that's the way it works.
Yep.
So
Okay.
It was voted on.
that, I'm not sure which day we sent it in,
The day we submitted it.
yeah.
I don't have it off plan, but it would be back at
These are the
same
items that
time.
were on the town
Does this
bill.
recall?
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like November
There was
23.
Two
November.
other changes too, though, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
there were three changes total that went to the AG's office, one being the recall and then the two other that were voted by the council. So once we get those, we'll get them out, and we'll get the date too.
Any other? Councilor Swope.
Thanks for your report.
Yeah.
The Affordable Housing Act, I know you're going to be discussing this more
Yeah.
with us. But is this, again, something that is charged to us by the state and that we are supposed to comply?
Yeah, especially the accessory dwelling units, that's mandated now, so, yeah, like a lot of things that used to be done by local zoning would be, something to adopt, and they're, mandatory now per this act, things like that. So, yeah, that's what the Attorney Sepulveda's taking a deep dive and wants to send a, email.
Okay, so we'll have a chance to discuss
Oh, without a
that,
doubt,
right?
yeah. And that's not till February of 2025 that goes into effect, so we have some time to, before we, look at it and potentially adopt it and this, that, and the other thing, take a look at it and have questions, so.
Is there a chance, if we say no to that, what happens to us?
Similar probably situation to 3A, I mean, it's a statement, it's a state law that came down that was passed, so, we have to, we'll take a look at that, but I wanna see what the impact would be, but that's not just us, I mean, that's just throughout the Commonwealth, this
right.
isn't even just the 3A area, right, this is the whole state, so, there'll be a lot of impacts with the accessory dwelling unit, so.
And as you understand it, the accessory dwelling unit is the only issue about the Affordable Care Act, or are there?
No, there's 5 or 6
Yeah,
that could impact us,
that's
yeah.
what I understand. So for example, can grants be tied to the Affordable Care Act? Let me give you an example.
It was just signed, so I'm not sure.
Housing, affordable housing, sorry,
Yeah.
not Care Act. Affordable Care, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Affordable Housing Act, sorry, thank you very much. So, for example, if a state, if someone in the state has given us the possibility of a grant, could they include the quid pro quo on the Affordable Housing Act if we were to get the money?
I don't have the law in front of me, I'm not sure, there was provisions written into the MBTA 3A zoning that listed those, 2 or 3 grants or 4
Right.
grants, whatever in the beginning.
That
And then
was
they
a
were-
3A.
that list was added to, but I don't know if that similar language exists, I'd have to check. I don't
Okay,
have an
great.
answer to that, so.
Can you, we can talk about that one.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Aiello.
I have 3 categories of questions, but since 3A is on the agenda, I'll defer that till you're at the 3A topic. The first is on the environment. I don't know if you noticed, but the Conservation Law Foundation, working with Mothers Out Front, City of Boston, City of Chelsea, City of Revere, have filed a lawsuit against National Grid because of the continuous disproportionate release of methane gas in those communities, which is leading to not only health concerns and acceleration of global warming, but is also apparently killing trees and all that stuff. When you go on the National Grid website, not the National Grid website, but when you go on Methane Leak website, collaborative nonprofit, Winthrop continues to have a number of Category 1 and 2 methane leaks in the community, which they need to attend to. There's no historical data, so it's difficult to determine whether the problem has gotten worse or what problem's getting better. But it's clearly a threat to health, to the environment, generally accelerates global warming, as well as it kills plants and trees around the community. I know Mothers Out Front was here last week. I wish they were at last meeting. I wish they were here this meeting. Is it possible to either contact CLF and/or Mothers Out Front to make sure, if there's a settlement with National Grid about accelerating the reduction of methane releases, that we get included and not excluded because we're not part of the lawsuit? Or if you could ask Attorney Sepulveda to investigate that.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it.
What I worry about it is that there's a settlement for all these communities around us who have the same problem as us. They then receive preferential treatment and we possibly don't, but I think, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know what standing means, it doesn't mean, but I think it's at least worth making an inquiry.
Okay.
Second thing, we had talked about, still waiting for the Army Corps of Engineers to approve the Fisherman Bend cleanup with
Yeah,
mosquito
they
control.
haven't yet, they're still waiting on that, so.
And where's the communication's been between us and the Army Corps, between mosquito
No,
control
the mosquito
and the
control
Army
and
Corps? And have we seen the documentation of what they have sent
I
to?
haven't asked for their emails, no, but.
Can we get a copy of what they've been sending to Army Corps, just to make sure that they're staying on top of it? Because I really worry about the fall and spring seasons. to make sure that if we can clean up that Fisherman Bend marsh, we can mitigate against some of the flooding in the Pico area and some of the areas on the other side of the marsh as well. Just a note on the middle school, so just to refresh, and try to figure out what the status is, I was triggered by something else that I'll describe. About 6 months ago, we sent a letter to Catherine Clark to pursue a grant that she encouraged us to pursue to help us with demolition, engineering, and utility relocation work for the redevelopment of the middle school site. The plan that we wrote to her in writing had a replacement hockey rink, expanded hockey rink facility, a community center, some 65-plus, 55-plus housing up at the upper end that people have talked about, and a small amount of workforce housing down at the lower end. I think she put in $1.5 million for us on that. Have we gotten any update from her office about?
We got moved out with one of the projects that she brought forward for an earmark, but the federal budget hasn't,
Hasn't been executed yet,
processed and
so-
passed yet. We didn't find out till November, December last year when we got the money for
Okay.
the EV Newton building, and I still haven't gotten that yet. They're still working on releasing the earmark, so.
Yeah.
Even though we got that money last year, we still haven't
Okay.
proceeded with it yet, so I wouldn't, but that, we won't find out till late fall, early, winter.
Okay, yeah, that's important to sort of know when it's coming, because I did notice in Senator Edwards had a summary of what's happened in the last fiscal year regarding Winthrop, House Senate stuff that came together, went to the governor's office, that we got a $2 million bond appropriation for the same purposes for the middle school site, for that mixed-use development there. And I know we're due to brief Senator Markey's office, and he had asked us to come back to him in September, October, when we last talked to him, about possibly getting it in the FY '26 federal budget as well. So, yeah, I think it's just important to sort of, to the extent we can push Congresswoman Clark.
Clear, a lot of this is tied to housing, which this council hasn't taken a stand on yet, one way or another, so we have to.
And the rink, I mean, the biggest users, footprints will be the rink and the community
Right.
center, and then
And the
smaller
rate to
footprints for
15, 20
housing.
million, we haven't identified a source of funds for
Yeah,
that.
but,
so, right.
so I think that's important. Okay. We'll talk about my 3A questions when you have the 3A item up.
Huh? There's no more public comment?
I just got a message that Zoom isn't working.
Yeah, it's not
I
working.
notified
We
everybody.
said that at the beginning. Oh, we didn't say it, but we would.
Well, I notified everybody on the
Counselor
chat.
DeRoche?
Thank you, Council President. Tony, following up on Suzanne's questions earlier about the Affordable Housing Act. When an impact study is done with Cipolletta looking at it, obviously from a legal standpoint, he's looking at it.
Right.
Will we get any kind of assessment from the finance team or anybody else as to the anticipated potential positive and negative financial impacts? Because I know that the Affordable Housing Act obviously has a lot of funds for towns when it comes to refurbishing, renovating, updating existing affordable housing units, and there's other potential monies in there for municipalities. Will we get any kind of assessment on that?
Not from our internal finance team,
Okay.
but the state's working on that and give us updates, and there's monies that are earmarked for just what you're talking about. So
Okay.
if that's, an avenue to pursue, or residents want to pursue that, there'll be funds available.
And do they get town-specific on that? Will they tell us
They won't tell-
what the
I'm not
impact
sure
might
if-
be on Winthrop?
I'm not positive. I'd find out. I'll ask the question, but I'm not positive. Usually on those kind of studies, it's internal, the towns, ask for them, hire somebody, and, do those internal
And we have to do
assessments
our own.
themselves. Right,
Okay.
yeah. That's sometimes, but not all the time, so I'll find out if they
Okay.
earmark any money for that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Just a quick follow-up from Counselor Castanary, then.
Just to follow up on Councilor DeRosa's question, I think that we discussed a couple of times a financial impact analysis that we, well, originally it was on 3A, but it was also on, now it should include this Affordable Housing Act. I was gonna say Affordable Cares Act.
Sorry.
This Affordable Housing Act as well. It's really important to be able to consider that, not just for the council, but for the entire town to consider that.
With permission, I wanted to
Just a
clarify.
quick follow-up, and then
Yeah.
we're going to move on.
Yeah, it was the fiscal impact analysis we had talked about a number of times now. One of the realities, let's imagine 3A goes away, okay? the actions of previous councils and the cumulative action of what we're seeing coming out of zoning board of appeals means that there are 900 units either recently built or on their way to being built in this community. That's without 3A. Imagine 3A goes away.
Yeah.
That's what we're facing. A big legit, can't do anything about that, right? We've rezoned. If we tried to unzone, we'd have 1 million lawsuits. Now, this stuff happened a few years back. But one of the things we should clearly understand, there are people sort of who are just making subjective claims. That'll be the best thing that ever happened to the town because it'll be all 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom units. That's what developers are building, and there'll be no impact on the schools. It'll actually be a net plus for the town budget. You have people on the other side saying this would be the worst thing in the world because we're overwhelmed with schools, et cetera. I'm not smart enough to know what the answer is, but a fiscal impact analysis actually looks at the kinds of housing that's being built, looks at the zoning that we have created, comes up with an analysis of what's likely to be built, and then what the revenue yield from those things will be, and what the cost that will be imposed by those units there. Almost every other municipality that is engaging in a growth scenario, and this is a growth scenario, I can't do anything about it, none of us can do anything about it at this moment. We need to understand the road we're heading on fiscally over the next 15 years, because that's the time period when all this stuff is gonna get built out. Set 3A aside completely. That is pre-approved, that's what's coming to us. We need to understand how to pre-position ourselves against or for whatever is coming up. So I've been asking for this since the beginning of the year. It's now August. I think the citizens and the council, you can't make decisions about things without that kind of analysis. So I would appreciate stepping on the gas on it.
One more quick follow-up by Council Swope, then we're moving on.
I agree with him, wholeheartedly. In addition to that, I just want to know about that $2 million bond. Is there a quid pro quo to that?
You have to build housing to even have access to it, and then the governor's got to choose to release it. It's a bond bill. There's a bunch of bond bills out there that if the governor doesn't choose to release it, it won't get released, so.
And the kind of housing is going to be
Yeah.
determined by the governor. It is a quid pro quo.
Well, it's, yeah, I mean, it's not, it has to be approved, yeah.
All
Be
right.
approved by the governor.
Yeah. It has to be released. It's got to be tied to a housing project. You can't just get it without being tied to some sort of a housing project.
All right, CDICR update?
Yes, they met, sorry, the email here. They met last week, and I got an email from the chair, Kelly Gall. They're launching their speaker series in September, and Rabbi Flax is confirmed as their inaugural speaker. She's finalizing the venue, trying to hopefully be the senior center, as it's handicap accessible. Otherwise, they're, maybe the public library will be another spot. And then more speakers are being actively recruited for subsequent events. September 15th, the CDICR is hosting another community cleanup day at Winthrop Beach. And members of the CDICR are volunteering for the August 24th event hosted by the Winthrop Commission on Disabilities. And that was all I had for information.
All right, thank you. Update on policymaking committees. The planning board met last evening. They discussed 2 properties. One was 7 Madison, which was continued for further review and information requested. Planning board did reiterate that they will give no relief on parking. And then 2224 Pauline, the planning board approved the project for a special permit by right, 6 apartments, 2.5 stories. Upcoming meetings, Board of License will be meeting tomorrow night and the 21st, and Board of Appeals will be meeting on Thursday night, the 22nd. Old business, firehouse update, we did, the town manager did speak a little bit about it. We were on the phone with Kessler and Booth today, trying to get further information. We hope to have, or we will have, not hope to have, we will have a questionnaire out extremely, in an extremely quick period of time, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. We're not sure how it's going to be distributed yet. We're looking into different options, town manager is. We did look, and I know there'll be a few questions, but just an update from what we know in terms of ballot. At our last meeting, the council approved the request from the school committee to put an override on the ballot. We were informed the next day, literally, because we had called them asking some other questions, and we were informed that they had mistakenly put a wrong date on their website, and we had to get it in literally that day. So we had to literally drive it into town to get it approved. So the override will be on the ballot. So now we're looking into, potentially there's a firehouse, potentially there's a citizen's petition, right, to put 3A on. So I asked town clerk again to call to see what other options we have. And we could, my understanding is, and I'll ask Denise to correct me, because I'm sure I'll probably screw it up, but we were told that we can have a separate ballot, a town ballot, for a citizen's petition, for a debt exclusion, for this November. Obviously, we could have a special election whenever we choose, it's just the cost involved. There would be an additional cost for this, at least $2,400 or something like that, but.
More than that, way more than that.
But not as much as a special election, potentially.
Well, if we do it in November with the presidential election, it'll cost the town close to $16,000
To add a question on a
to
ballot.
add a question, because we have to abide by everything that the state does.
In terms
We have
of
to
early
send out
voting,
early
in
voting,
terms
we have
of-
to send the cards out, we have to do everything. So we have to send 14,000 cards out if we do this.
Okay.
So if we do that, and then we have another ballot question anyway, in a month or so, that'll be another additional 16,000.
So basically, you're saying it would be to add something to the November presidential election, it would be basically the same cost as a special election in December or January or early October, whatever. Okay.
Yep.
So that's something that I'll ask about also in a minute. So Councilor Aiello had a question on 3A.
I thought there was an update.
Oh, on the fire, I'm sorry. Yes, firehouse, we're still on the firehouse. So, Tony, can you give us a little update? We also know that there's some repairs going on, or potentially going on, for the existing firehouse on Pauline Street. Can you give us a little update on that?
Yes, we've had the soil samples done in the basement to make sure that if we did, flow fail and or this foam, that it could handle it. The soils were fine, they wouldn't compact, so soil samples are done, and it's fine for that. There was a plan out there to build a small retaining wall downstairs so we can isolate just the area where the bays are, so we can remove the floor, put the fill in, and then pour a new concrete floor over that. And then we're also getting pricing and plans for, obviously we lose the steam boiler at that point, so what mini splits and electric, heat would cost upstairs, so. A little bit more to follow on that. There's no, imminent threat or anything for the floor to fall in, but it's something we have to address. We are looking at potentially taking one of the engines out that we don't use on a regular basis and maybe putting it over at the old DPW garage and finding a new home for the high water vehicle temporarily, so they'd have close by access to it, but we'd also lose half the weight on the floor. While we come up with this, plan and potentially put some steel plates over it to straddle to the footing. So we're looking at a few different things, but we want to get a fine-tuned cost before we bring it to the council to, discuss the way we're gonna look to finance it or, fund it, so.
Okay. And as far as the questionnaire, you're assuming it's going to be in regards to 2 sites,
Yes, unless I get direction otherwise, that's what we're talking about.
which would be basketball courts and the middle
Yeah.
school. It would be a questionnaire on a fire station only,
Yes.
and it would involve some site plans, it would involve some costs, giving people as much information and being as
Yeah,
transparent as we can on what we have.
Say it's 33 million, what that 33 million entails. Any sort of auxiliary cost on top of that, i.e. moving the basketball courts, the stormwater work that has to happen on the old middle school site, like those additional things that aren't included in there, we wanna make sure we add those in as well. So people have to understand the whole cost and what it will take to do it.
So any questions on the update of the firehouse? All right, update on MBTA 3A zoning. I just wanted, again, to keep this ongoing, right? First, I'll ask Councilor Aiello, you had a question?
Sure, if there's no update. So let me describe where I think we are. It's not clear to me that we are, but, so when 3AB sort of came out, it was very confusing to everybody across the state, within this town, etc. A couple of things became clear to me. I am 2 years into this council. I've been somewhat active in community stuff, but not very active in community stuff beforehand. When we began to look at the original data that came out for Winthrop, We realized that some of the data the state was using was wrong. They had the airport as part of it in terms of total acreage, so it reduced our density. When you corrected for density, it became clear we were, I believe, fourth most dense of the 3A communities within the region. Boston is exempted from 3A, so not counting that, which is remarkable. I benefited from a lot of people who called me up or emailed me, and some of the other counselors who said, let's not forget what we've done at this town. And the data, Tony, which you have presented here before, was pretty dramatic. That in 1960, we had 3,500 single-family homes. We had 1,000 units in multifamily homes. In 2020, we still had about 3,500 single-family homes. It moved up just a little bit. In fact, in some decades, it dropped down a little bit. But we added over 3,500 additional units in this town in multifamily structures. So if you just look at that performance, we are the, if you believe that density is important, we have been a leading town that has increased our densification as we live next to Boston. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I'm not gonna say one way or another, but the facts are we have densified well ahead of the state coming to the conclusion they'd like to get people to densify. When you look at the regs, we don't get any credit for any of that densification. And I didn't think that that was correct. Compounding that, if we had just sat on our butts, excuse me for using that word, if some are offended, and had not ended the 3,500 units over that period of time, we would have had, instead of 880, we would have had 350 units less. So it's discriminatory in terms of the calculations they use against good actors of municipalities that have increased densification, further requiring relief from the community. So we're very dense, we've got a good history of doing it, and your formula is punitive to those who actually behave the right way. And then in 2012 and 2020, roughly, and it was sort of 2012, 2013, and I think 2020 spilled into 21, we rezoned for these 900 units along the waterfront and along, and largely Winthrop Center and the middle school. So with, and we were getting no credit for that as all. So I believe the approach has always been that it's important for us, we have two paths we can make, right? And I'm not gonna judge about which path is better. We can just say, no, that's fine. Or we can just say to the state, look, we've already done our part, okay? And we want you to recognize we've done our part between what we've actually have built in this community and what we have approved to get built in this community. And the original recommendation that a number of us made was just take the new zoning, the 2012 and 2020 zoning, and give us full credit for that. Well, we have something come to us that's a little bit different, okay? I'm not sure I like it or don't like it because I don't understand it fully, but I want to sort of get to a point of the information we need. Rather than take that approach, the consultants working with the planning board said, well, why don't we get a credit for some subset of the center rezoning, which we did, which means we're going to lower your 880 down to 600 roughly units. But it's not going to be overlaid with 3A, right? So everything the council did in 2020 or 2012, whatever you thought about it, nothing changes. There is no 3A overlay. But they found a mechanism.
Sorry,
They found a mechanism.
sorry.
Should I go ahead?
Yep, I think I fixed it.
Okay. We found a mechanism where Governor's Park and Sail Harbor were never rezoned, and we could take credit for rezoning them under 3A. But legitimate questions have come about that, right? And the questions, I'm not going to summarize them, other people have summarized, but basically, will the 3A zoning overlay over existing condominium developments overrule the terms and conditions, the condo docks that happen within those units? Is it going to affect me if I'm a homeowner in one of those areas, am I now restricted from doing things that I had been able to do in the past? Or am I gonna be able to engage in activities that might be detrimental to my neighbors down the hall? I mean, I think that captures a good chunk of it, right? We need answers to those questions, right? And we don't need answers from anybody except the Attorney General and the Secretary of Housing's legal counsel. And we need to see the source documentation. We need to see the letter that comes from us asking for clarification about the myriad of issues that have been raised by Governor's Park and Seal Harbor people. And we need to see the answer in writing under their letterhead before we can have any discussion about whether we like the solution or don't like the solution. If it's not this is now my opinion. That's what I think we need for public information. This is my opinion, and it's consistent with my position. If we cannot get a sorting out that it is very clear that a 3-year overlay will not harm in any way the people who live at Governor's Park and own property at Governor's Park and Seal Harbor, if we can't get that guarantee in writing from their councils, I think we need to ask the planning board to think about going back and just take credit for the rezoning that we did and ask for credit for the entire thing without a 3A overlay. To me, that's the direction I always wanted to go in. I think it's a correct direction. If this solution can satisfy everybody, that's fine. If it doesn't satisfy people because we don't get clarity of a legal opinion that sticks from the state, then I think we ought to take course and look at that, and then give people a choice. People can then decide, okay, I'd like getting a full credit for everything where we don't have to change anything. I'm happy with that, or I still don't like the state telling me what I need to do, right? And those are really governmental philosophical things, but people get a choice around that. But I think that's where we are, but it starts with getting the documentation that I have asked for before, and I need it, and we need it very formally, they need it, we all need it, in order to have a proper discussion about this stuff.
Thanks for voting no, Joe.
So that does sound like a nice speech that you're against 3A.
I have not said I'm for it or against it. I
It was
don't know
a
what it
pretty good
is, Jim.
speech. I mean,
Jim, don't put words in my mouth.
I'm just saying, I
Don't
just
put words in
listened to
my
you
mouth.
for 4 minutes.
Jim, time out, time out. I take it.
Council President, please.
Please.
Council President.
Council President, please.
Enough, guys.
I agree with you.
Please, Jim.
Please do not put words in my mouth. Please,
Thank you,
do you want to have a
Councilor.
debate about how
Thank
this
you,
thing
Counselor.
started and how you mismanaged it from the very beginning? I'm willing to have that. Do you want to have that discussion?
You're out of order.
Thank you.
You'd like to leave?
No. But stop
You have
impugning
to
what I'm saying.
learn the decorum on the council.
Okay.
I've been here 18 years, you've been here a year and a
You began
half.
first.
Please learn
Please.
before you make comments that you don't know what you're talking about.
What you say
All right, so we're moving on.
We're moving on away from
Nope,
this.
we're not moving on away from this discussion. So let me just go over a few things, where we are right now. The planning board, we are going to be asking for a special meeting on the 27th with the planning board. At that meeting, they will propose to us what their thoughts are and what they're recommending. They still have a couple of questions to ask RKG. So they have a couple clarifications they have to get. In the meantime, I think at the beginning of this whole process, we did ask the state to give us exemption for the 600 and odd units that we had at the CBD. We were told no. We didn't learn about the offset until RKG came on and mentioned that. So they will be coming back to us. They will then go back to RKG, get a few answers. They will then take a vote to officially accept their recommendations. Then the ball is in our hands. Obviously, there was talked about a petition here earlier. That petition could come to the council. We could vote to have a special election. We could vote to add it on the November election. It looks like if we do it in a timely manner. We could also just vote and see. If it's a no, it's a no. If it's a yes, then it probably goes to the citizens. whatever we do, we have to do it before December 31st. Once the plan is approved by the planning board, it will then go to the state for approval. Correct?
It can, it's if the planning board wants to do a review, or they can do a cursory review. There's a 90-day review that's available to the planning board if they want to use it. The state's also said they'll take a look with, conversations with them, they know what's coming, so they can do a cursory review too, which could be less than 90 days, but that's up to the planning board, they have that option if they want to send it up to the executive office.
And if they do send it up and we do not vote in the interim, that means if we wait until we get an answer, which if it's 90 days, it could be approaching December, right? Whatever it is. And if we got a favorable review from the state and we were to vote it down, or the citizens were to vote it down, and eventually it became law of the land and we had to enact it, we would be able to go back to that version, correct? Correct?
What are you asking there?
If we went for a review
Yeah.
from the planning board, if they came back with a recommendation, we went to the state, they got a review, they came back and said this is okay, and if we then voted it down, and then the lawsuits came back and the lawsuits lost, and now we have to enact 3A, is that plan
I would
automatic?
hope they would use that plan, but I'm not sure that that's a guarantee if it goes to a
Okay.
lawsuit at that point.
So it's not a guarantee.
They may push back and tell you to come back and submit the districts, and I don't know,
Right. And if the-
that I don't know for sure, I'm not sure.
And if the council just chooses to end this and votes as soon as possible, and votes yes, it would probably be a petition that would be re-voted on by the citizens. If we vote no, it would more than likely, that would be the end of it. We would probably have some sort of legal action from the state.
After December 31st. Like
After
similar to what
December
they did in
31st?
Milton, I'm sure they'd file a lawsuit against the town.
And then we would be in a holding pattern.
Yeah, we'd have to-
So the question we have, and I know we are waiting, I have the ability to put it on the council agenda for discussion and just go straight to the citizens if we choose to do that. I have no problem with that. I've been ready to vote since January, so I don't know what the heck we're waiting so long for. We keep looking for answers that we're not going to get, and the answers are never what we want them to be anyway, and when they are, they're very ambiguous and they change from moment to moment, so. That's where we are now. We will meet with the planning board on the 27th. I will put it on the agenda at the next meeting. If the council wishes to vote on letting it go directly to the citizens, I have no problem with that. I'll let the council decide. Councilor Swope had something she wanted to add.
Yeah. I have a couple of questions. First of all, if the planning board is only charged with trying to figure out how we could adopt 3A with the least amount of disruption, I thought, in Winthrop. Is that correct assumption or not?
Yeah, AKA paper compliance, right, for what we're trying to be
So
moving around.
they were not
Try to
asked.
minimize the units that could be built.
Right,
for
so
us.
that, their charge is not to decide, and I think they said this, whether we should adopt 3A or not. That is not their charge. What it concerns me is that if the planning board recommends something and that plan gets sent to the state, I'm concerned that the state will think that that is a plan that Winthrop should adopt. And therefore, we would be out of compliance, and I think that's what happened in Milton. I think what Milton did is they recommended a plan, they sent it to the state, and then the town voted it down. And then the state says, we're gonna sue you because you already sent a plan up.
No, that's not what happened in Milton.
So-
Milton voted, select board, town meeting, whatever, voted a plan. The voters weren't happy with it, so they went out and got the referendum vote, had to vote yes or no on that plan, and that won, the no
Right,
vote won.
so I don't want a plan to go to the state from our planning board, because I'm concerned that the state will then think, unless we would think that we would adopt that, board, that the town council would think that was okay. I don't want
Well,
it
that's
to go to
something
the
to
state.
bring up with them next week when we meet, to ask them just that question and see what their plan is to bring it up to the state for review or not. I mean, that's.
What, wait a minute, who, to bring it up to the
Planning board.
That's the planning board if they're gonna do
But
the
if
review
the,
or not.
are you telling me that the planning board could bring it to the state without coming
There's a
to
service
us?
that the state's offering. If you've got a district and you've got, a plan in place that you wanna have reviewed, they'll take a look at it to make sure the zoning and all of the boxes are checked and it complies with the law, and they'll approve it once it gets up to them. If the town subsequently then approves it, like, just because the planning board sends it up and they say this plan looks okay, it's still up to the town council, and if the town council votes yes and the voters aren't happy, then it's ultimately up to the voters, right? They could do a referendum vote.
But I don't want the state to say that we have sent something up from the planning board that they then approve, that then the state, you see what I'm saying? I don't know why the planning board would be able to send it to the state without coming through the town council.
The planning board's just asking for
Planning
help
board's, yeah,
from the
in
state
charge
to
of-
see if
yeah.
what they're going to present, potentially,
Yeah,
to what they're
potentially, right.
presenting is.
It's a pre-review.
Yeah.
To see if
Right,
it's
exactly.
acceptable.
Yeah.
They could,
To
if
see if
they,
it's
if
even
the state
acceptable.
accepted it, it doesn't become 3A until
Right,
either either the council or the citizens
And the state's
vote
well
on it.
aware that there's, that this
I
is a
hope so.
divide here, and that they know there's
Believe me,
potentially
I
gonna
think
be a
so.
valid vote. I mean, they're well aware of that as well, so, yeah.
Councilor DeMarco?
Let's be honest, 3A is never gonna happen here. It's not gonna happen. I mean, even if we were to vote for it, it's gonna get shut down. We represent you. We represent the town of Winthrop. And the percentage of people who are against this is so overwhelming, I feel like the councilors would be doing a disservice to the people we represent if we voted yes on 3A. So I just wanted to
Vice President Belcher?
Thank you. I just want to say, I know we've asked a lot of the questions a few times in a few different ways to the state, but there are two looming question marks, and that's the Milton case and the Rockport case, and I'm personally not comfortable voting until those have been decided. That's big information about this, and that impacts everything. It could make it all go away, for all we know. So I just wanted to put it out there that I don't think it's responsible for us as a council or for citizens to vote until all the information is on the table.
Anyone else? All right, this will continue to be on the agenda at the next meeting. New business, we have a release and abandonment of a certain right-of-way on Summit Ave. We're going to send that to Public Works. We have air rights approval for 50 Somerset Ave. We're referring that to Economic Development. And we have a motion to waive Rule 2A of the council. We have a motion, waive Rule 2A of the Town Council Rules and Procedures to schedule a joint special meeting with the Planning Board on August 27th, 2024, to be held at the DeLeo Senior Center at 6 PM, or take any other action relative thereto. The motion's been made by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor Aiello. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
Recusal.
One recusal.
Thank you.
Excuse
We
me,
are-
town council members?
You're out of order right now. You could wait and
Sorry,
the next,
He's
this,
He's confused.
Put my,
For one of the items.
my face in it.
there's a public comment period in 3 minutes, 2 minutes.
Okay, my apologies. I was here on behalf of clients regarding the certain right-of-way being released. And I was just curious as to what the fate of that was, or you mentioned it might go to public works.
It was just sent that it was just mentioned it was sent to Public Works, so the subcommittee will have a meeting on it, then it will come back to the council for a vote.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate
Thank you. There's also a motion that the town council waive Rule 2A of the Town Council Rules and Procedures to amend the September town council meetings. The town council meeting is scheduled for the first Tuesday of the month, which is September 3rd, which is also primary day. So we will be asking to move the meeting to September 4th and keep the third Tuesday, which is September 17th, or take any other action relative thereto. There's a motion by Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor DeMarco. Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Public comment. Sir, I'm sorry, and I apologize for that, but if you wanted to speak any more on that issue, you're still welcome to speak on it.
Don't we have to vote on,
We have to waive a rule because he's not a citizen of Winthrop.
Yeah. I'll make a motion to waive the rule if he wants to speak.
You just don't even need a motion, you just need to. So, sir, if you'd like to speak, just state your name.
Oh, sure. Thank you again, Attorney Eugene Kosinski. Here, I represent Bill and Gina Edgett. They're the owners of the real property at 76 Summit Avenue in Winthrop. If this is going to another committee, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but if the council members would like to hear about this in the situation now before it comes up, I'm willing to sort of introduce it, but if you prefer that I wait until it comes back, I'm more than happy to do so.
And again, they will announce when the subcommittee meeting's going to be. You're obviously more than welcome to go there and talk to the subcommittee, and they will make a recommendation based on information from you, from other people, from abutters, and as well as themselves. So it'd probably be best if you spoke at the subcommittee meeting.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you again for your time tonight. Thanks for letting me speak.
Oh, and thank you for sticking it out through the process of trying to get Zoom back on. Other public comments? Yes, Diane.
Diane, precinct 5. I said 2 before. I named it. Just a couple of things about the paper plan, the planning board, what they're doing. And I talked to Carol about Seal Harbor 1, 3, Governor's Park, Fort Heath. So they overlay all these places, and I know I'm more stupid than anybody, but I can't picture all these things, that's why. And then, then they tell us, okay, you've done this, you hired this group, our KG, who actually put the plan in place, worked with the state to put the plan in place, and then you hired them, and so they do, as a consultant. So now we put the overlay over those places. So how do we work? Then they come around and they say, you spent money on lawyers and on consultants, lots of business going on, all the towns. And they said, why did we do this? Just to make paper plans? Oh no, we didn't do this to make paper plans. We want you to build things. So now build it. Well, it's not gonna work. How are we gonna build it? You have this, one person wants to sell it, it's cost prohibitive. They can't buy the whole building unless they buy Fort Heath. They could buy Fort Heath. In my mind, I can't picture how this works. How you can do a fake paper plan that doesn't work. And then when the state says you spent all this money, how do you make it work? Why can't, it just doesn't work in the end. Apartment 1 sells, apartment 3 sells, apartment 2 doesn't want to sell. So in the end, you've got someone with multiple bedrooms here, multiple bedrooms here, this lovely apartment in the middle of them, and it lowers the value of Seal Harbor 3. So now you've got places that aren't worth what they were worth before. So you've ruined, I mean, I can't see that it works.
That's the intent, is to lower
Excuse me,
the-
Cheryl, just,
I can't understand the paper plan, that's what I'm saying. I can't understand that we want to do a 15-year financial plan without citizen input when we just hired a consultant that worked for the state. I don't understand that. We're doing we're looking at trying to say no to this. We're saying no to this because we don't agree with it for a number of reasons, and we have councilors that like it because they like the politicians that they're going. I'm finished with my time, but I got the point across.
thank you, Diane. Kathleen?
Hi, Kathleen Capuccio. Just to go a little bit beyond what Diane was talking about, I think what people are, or some people are maybe confused at, is paper compliance. Some might say, hey, let's do that. It makes Winthrop compliant. We're not gonna lose grants. The problem with this is the state has, with their actions, in writing, Salem is one of them in their compliance letter. When you put forth to the state, okay, this is our plan, whether the town council voted or a town meeting voted or the citizens voted, this is the plan. Okay, you're in compliance. The compliance letter, which we've, well, hopefully you've seen, is caveated. There's a huge caveat that the state can still come back and do what they want. So the problem with this law, and the fact that this law, some of this law, actually not all of it, went through the legislature. The guidelines did not. The guidelines have been changed 3 times. 95% of this law, and especially the penalties, are within the guidelines. So whether the council votes, the people vote, if you vote yes for paper compliance, you are voting for an ever-changing goalpost. You're not voting for, you do this, great, you're good. The state has told us that with their actions, with their words that are documented. Christopher Boyce, the awesome chair of the planning board, it was pursuant to a FOIA, I saw this memo. Christopher Boyce sent to Eric, I think it's Halverson at RKG, sent him and I can forward this to the council, sent Eric an email, said, you know, people are concerned about 2 things it seems. One is the fact that the guidelines have changed so much. And Eric's response, again, RKG, our consultant, and as Diane said, is directly connected to the state in Pro 3A. Look up anything, they're Pro 3A. They are not an independent consultant. Let's make no bones about that. So in the response, Eric said in writing that pursuant to Secretary Augustus's office, they have no plans to change the guidelines, but they might. We are agreeing, or someone might agree, if you're crazy, to agree to a law that is ever-changing. It's bloody insane. Thank you.
And I just want to say, because you mentioned Chris Boyce's name personally.
Oh, I apologize.
and- No, I just want to say that I want everybody to understand that the planning board is doing an incredible job at what they do. And I know you didn't mean he was not.
Yes.
But I just want to thank the planning board for everything they've done. They have a mission. Their mission is to get us something that we can
Yes,
agree on.
oh, so
Right.
sorry, Jim.
No,
If I can
that's
say that
fine.
quick though, just on record, I think the planning board is absolutely doing what they were, what's the word?
What they were charged to
What they were
do.
tasked to do. I think Chris is fabulous and the rest of the planning board is. So I didn't mean,
I know
was
you
appreciative,
didn't. I know
sorry.
you didn't. Cal,
I just want to make sure, I'm not.
just
sure-
name
Oh, I'm sorry, Carol Ficello, precinct 4. I just want to make sure I did write a letter to the town council and to the planning board dated August 12th. I just want to make sure that's on the record because it wasn't mentioned earlier.
Yes.
Secondly, I just want to address, I really have to understand and make this clear. When we're talking about paper compliance and overlay, and we'll get credit for buildings that are already there, that is only half of the equation. Even if we don't do any new development, once the state comes in and controls that zoning in those designated areas, it can in fact change, modify, do whatever they want in the future in perpetuity. We will never regain our local control of zoning. Secondly, this reconfiguration, even if we don't build one new unit, those designated zones have units that can now be changed, and we have no way to review that. We lose all local zoning rights of permitting, of variances, of hearings, of appeals. We have none of that. It's by right, the developer can do what they want, and we have no recourse. That is very dangerous for people living in those zones, and ultimately for the people living in Winthrop. This has to be understood, because when they say least impact, it's not least impact of the people living in those zones. And I would challenge anyone who's not in that zone, volunteer your zone and see how you feel about losing your property value and losing your local control. We need to keep that autonomy, we need to keep self-determination. The First Amendment allows us to keep that, Home Rule allows us to keep that. We must maintain that once the state gets in, there's no stopping what else they're gonna do once they get into our town. And your neighborhood can be the next subject or victim of these situations.
Thank you.
Senate Precinct 2, I'd like to dovetail on Catherine's comments. A lot of these conditions have not been voted on by any lawmakers. These people are making unilateral decisions, and they're not even elected officials, okay? That has to stop completely. These rules and regulations they're adding on need to go through a legislative process. And they've already taken a punitive action against us with the MVP grant. We haven't even voted on anything. Boston got it, Revere got it, and because Winthrop might say no to it, we didn't get our MVP grant. We're doing the same exact work as Boston and Revere, okay? The politics of this have already reared their ugly head.
Mr. Dow.
Thank you, Mr. President. And there's still room for you to move on the situation. I think everybody's agreeing, especially the road, it should be a no vote. So let's make it unanimous so the state doesn't get confused about the Hawkins Street. So I hope you change your mind. As far as the middle school site, the middle school site is 141 Pauline Street. The auditorium and the gymnasium are 151 Pauline Street. So the concern is only about 141 Pauline Street. That's the classroom site on Pauline Street. I mentioned before that we should be selling this parcel of land. It's upwards of worth $5 million. Everybody says we need money. It's just sitting there. I'm looking at gift horse in the mouth. Change the zoning or whatever you have to do to sell that parcel for $5 million. And then you can start concerning yourself, Jim, with the transparency of what we want to discuss about real estate up there. We can generate $1 million of revenue. I don't want you to comment. I don't want you to clarify. I want you to bring it to a town forum of what to do with that $5 million and what to do about the sale of that land. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Former President Gill, and then Diane.
I just wanted to, my email, and I've expressed it many times that I want the council to vote no, but I wanted to divert to Diana and her group because she presented, she's a lot smarter than I am, and she presented some good stuff. They've worked really hard, they know more than I do, so I would still like to have you vote tonight, no, but I know that's not going to happen, and I divert to Diana.
Thank you. Diane.
Diana Advance, Precinct 2. So lots of problems talked about with 3A, but the other problem, despite what we thought originally about paper compliance, is that we've had the benefit of time, and we have learned that this is actually about land use. This is a rooming house overlay, we have learned. Milton had the spidey senses to recognize that this doesn't really work, and that this was going to change that particular district that was zoned with the plan that was designated. But we have had the benefit of time, and we have learned that there is no getting around the very clear guidelines which say there's no minimum bedroom size, no maximum number of bedrooms, no occupancy limit, and if you try to do that, you are then out of compliance. That's a rooming house, and we got rid of it in the 1900s with the Tenement Acts, 3 of them. Look it up. So that might not matter to the state. Like, yes, put it over Seal Harbor. Onesies, twosies, like, why does the state care? They want lots of those. But it matters a lot to the people who live there. A ton, okay? We've also learned, and that's an unintended consequence, that we just, again, have had the benefit of time to understand. There is no credit. Joe, I'm so sorry, Councilor Ayo, I'm so sorry, but for this idea of already zoned land, that's just compliance. That's just handing the state over. Like, we understood this originally to be a multifamily zoning district. We have 65% multifamilies here in Winthrop. We are not void of multifamily housing. We're not trying to keep it out. Like, that's all we do here now because that's all we have room for. We convert what we've got here to multifamily to fit more people in because that's all we've got left. We are built out as of, I don't know, 20 years ago. We have a study of 2005 that actually says that. Like, we are this close to being built out, and that was like, you know, thousands and thousands of units ago. Like, the paper compliance thing is totally out the window. It's not about units, not about credit, like already zoned stuff. That's our stuff. Center Business District is for commercial space. It's for a walkable area that people want to go to and that people actually walk to and have businesses there to visit. And I love where Cafe Delight has located to. It just totally livens the space. I think we can do a lot with that. So I'd love to have more conversations about that. But in any case, we're not looking to have the Center Business District rezoned as a rooming house district. Okay, that's for businesses. And that's like the lifeblood and the future of this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Karen Travis, Precinct 2. I have sent at least 2 emails to the council about the traffic in this town. I spoke to the town manager about it a month ago, but I was going to bring it up, but I am a member of the TSAC committee. And at every single meeting, we have complaints that come either through the town manager's office or through a counselor from somebody who's complaining about speed, parking, they need more stop signs, we need speed bumps, we need this, we need that. Until, and the town manager knows this, until a complete evaluation is done by an outside vendor to evaluate our streets to see what streets should have parking, what streets shouldn't have parking, what streets should have parking on both sides, what streets shouldn't have parking on both sides, what streets should be one way. We're not going to solve any problems. And adding 3A certainly is not going to help the current situation that we have. Superintendent Caller is here. He is also a member of TSAC. He and several other members of our committee go out frequently to measure sidewalk to sidewalk, to see how wide the street is, to see if we should make it a one-way or parking on only one side of the street. It's just ongoing. It isn't just one area of town, please. We get a lot of complaints from the maids, a lot. We get a lot of complaints from all over the town. But don't think that it's just one area. It's the entire town. And until something is done about this, about deciding what is and what isn't one-way or two-way or whatever, nothing's going to be solved. And 3A certainly is not going to help.
Thank you. Yes, Denise.
Vasily Melios?
Hi Denise, can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
So I just have a couple of points to make. I'd like to know why didn't any of our counselors go back to Senator Edwards, as she's the chairperson of the Joint Committee of Housing, as far as putting something to repeal this law, the MBTA Communities Act. I know quite a few of you are supporters and have been endorsed by her, and so I just would like to see as to why has she not taken our side in this and put something on the floor at the Capitol as far as repealing this law. Second, I'd like to know why are we allowing the planning board to continue their work. The third thing I'd like to point out is we have had a counselor now spoken to regarding decorum twice. How much further along are we going to allow these behaviors? Because I will tell you right now, in my 6th grade classroom, it is absolutely unacceptable. And thank you for my public comment.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Public relations, Winthrop Farmers Market, again, it's been fantastic. It is again this Sunday. It is going through, I think, October 2nd and 4th, the 2nd and 4th Sunday of October, and that is at Ingleside Park, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The attendance just seems to be getting better every week, and I think as the weather cools down, it will just be that much better. But they've done a great job. The vendors have done an incredible job, and I think the citizens have really done a great job of attending there, so I encourage you to continue to do so. August 24th is an Accessible Adventures Fun Day at Deer Island that we've spoken about a few times. Early voting. And so for the September 3rd state primary, Town Hall will commence early voting August 24th until 5 p.m. and then August 26th through August 29th. at the regular town hall hours. Again, August 27th, as we had just done, there'll be a joint meeting with the town council and the Winthrop Planning Board, and that will take place at the senior center, not the Harvey Room. September 26th, we have Winthrop Recovery Event at Town Hall from 5:30 to 8:30, and I was talking about this with town manager today. It's amazing how quick a year goes by. Seems like we were just up there, and they will have their walk from Town Hall down to the center and some festivities in the Metcalf Square. So I encourage people to attend that. The recovery team does an incredible job, and just to learn a little bit more about what they do and to thank them for their efforts is just a nice thing to do. With that, a motion for adjournment, Vice President Belcher, second by Councilor DeMarco. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No. Meeting adjourned.
Good time.
Yep.
Tony?